Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I am your host, Mike Malatesta. On this podcast, I dig in deep with every guest to get to the roots of their success, to discover not just how it happened, but why it matters. My mission is to expose the ideas and clues you need to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the How Did It Happen podcast. And today I have another amazing success story. I've got Josh Elledge on the show. Josh, thanks so much for joining me.
Mike, it's so good to be here.
So let me tell you a little bit about Josh so you can get as excited as I am. Josh Elledge is a U.S. Navy veteran, thank you, who became a serial entrepreneur who builds the companies he needs most in the world. That's a very interesting way to put it. And I want to explore that. Thank you for that. In 2014, Josh launched UpMyInfluence to help entrepreneurs like himself attract the perfect audiences and grow their authority and influence. However, while growing their better than PR agency, UpMyInfluence discovered that building seven-figure business-to-business sales systems for consultants and agencies is actually what they do better than anyone else on the planet. I call that strategic byproduct. That's a strategic byproduct of the journey. Josh is a frequent speaker at business and startup conferences, including Social Media Marketing World, and a Tony Robbins event for his business mastery grads. He's a weekly consumer expert on Fox 35 Orlando and News 13. He writes a syndicated column for 9 newspapers with a total readership above 1.1 million, which is amazing, and regularly appears on more than 75 TV stations across the country. All told, Josh has appeared in the media more than 2,000 times. He's passionate about his family, his physical fitness. An avid fitness geek is what it says. So I do want to talk about that as well. And breaking out of escape rooms. Imagine that.
Have you done any escape rooms?
I've done a couple. Yes. I will talk to you about escape rooms because I know you have a long list of escape room.
Yeah, my wife and I have. Yeah, I think my wife and I have done probably about 40 to 50 of them now, and I think we have about a 95% success rate. Like we're pretty into it. We're escape room nerds.
And you just do it, the two of you together, or do you have other people?
So my daughter's not. I wouldn't say she's an escape room nerd. She's come with us, and but my boys, they're both kind of engineer minded. You know, my one son's going into cybersecurity. He's in high school, but he already knows what he wants to do. My other son is a mechanical engineer. My wife loves puzzles, and I am. I would say it's fun because so when you do escape rooms a lot, you start to learn. That's why I think it's a great team building exercise because personalities really come out. I tend to be a pretty good coordinator and communicator. And then also, I would say a lot of outside the box kind of thinking. My wife is a genius when it comes to puzzles, and just she could solve I'm no good at, right? She did. But you start to recognize your superpowers and you really learn to play to that. So, to someone who's, kind of done a few escape rooms and you wonder people are really good at it. That's, people start to recognize their strengths and everybody knows, oh, that's one of these puzzles. All right. And then immediately, everyone knows what to do. So yeah,
everyone else get away. Yeah. Okay. Have you thought about, Amazing Race or something like that for the two of you?
Yeah. I haven't. I'm a little too busy. I can listen. Yeah, I can squeeze in. I've had friends that have been on reality TV shows, and I can squeeze in a 1 hour escape room. But to give up potentially, a couple months of my life, I don't know.
Might be fun.
Not sure I'm ready for that.
sometimes the world is about experiences, and it sounds like you guys might do well. So you can find Josh anywhere by searching for his name, Josh Elledge, ELLEDGE. and you can also find out about him at UpMyInfluence.com. Josh, I start every show with the same simple question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
Quite by accident, and I'm sure you've heard that answer quite a bit. So right out of high school, joined the U.S. Navy, fell in love. I got into journalism because I thought it was fun, and then I met Adrian Cronauer, who is the featured, or his story is featured in the movie Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams, and he really inspired me to serve audiences and the sacred duty that we have, when we leverage platform and we want to do good in the world, because we have a tremendous opportunity to do good in the world when we use platform in that way. So I was a journalist in the United States Navy for 5 years, studied family science because I wanted to be a marriage and family therapist, but I fell in love with internet development. And so I started a number of businesses there. And the first 6 businesses I did, ultimately, some of them failed pretty spectacularly. And some of them, eventually I just exited. But then I started Savings Angel, and that company did quite well. So that ultimately became a 6-figure a month company. And it was a real joy. But I did all of that revenue, and I think close to $7 million in revenue in total, that we did, with that company. But all of that I did with 0 paid ads, no advertising at all. And how I achieved that success is I just started using local media. I started leveraging platform with this mindset of generosity. And I said, as a guest, I'm going to be more generous than anybody else. I'm going to think truly in terms, and again, I learned this from Adrian Cronauer. What does your audience need right now? What do they need most right now? And that's what you need to do. So I would go into this radio studios, thinking of Shelly, and Shelly was holding her baby as she's, shopping at the grocery store, and she's looking at the price of diapers, and she's stressed because she's like, why are diapers so doggone expensive? It's not fair. And that's who I was there for. I was there because that represented my mom when she was, taking care of 3 little kids, right? And so I have an obligation to serve her. So, because of that passion, that desire to serve, I think people really resonated with that. And so they're like, and we would help them cut their grocery bill in half. Now, along the way, I started serving pro bono in our local startup communities, our local SBDC, Small Business Development Center, SCORE, minority-owned business owners, women-owned business owners, veteran-owned business owners, serving on boards, pro bono workshops. I mean, just as much volunteer stuff as I could do, because I'm like, listen, I know what it's like to be at the early stages. Everyone deserves a mentor. And if you can't get one pro bono or otherwise, here we are. Here's Mike and I having a conversation. You can go back through Mike's catalog and hear amazing business leaders, share their story. You can go look up The Thoughtful Entrepreneur, episode 1051, where I talk about the truth behind owning a trade business with Mike. And Mike, you were a guest on my podcast, so thank you so much for that. But that's it. You just, you want to build, because, if you believe in this law of association, you are the combined average of the 5 people you hang around with most, right? Old school was, I think that was
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn. Yeah. So you can up your average by associating virtually with people that you resonate with. And so that's, I was focused on that. I really tried to do that in my early stages of business. I was committed to showing up as a mentor in that way. But here's the thing that'll happen, right? And I've had friends that have exited businesses, and, we've had private conversations. They're like, what do I do now, Josh? I'm going to take some vacations, but then what? And I'm like, man, keep busy, just keep doing stuff. And what I like about pro bono workshops and serving, right? It doesn't matter what stage in business you are. We all have the capacity to, there's stuff we do that, very focused on growing our business. But I like the idea of maybe taking, up to 10% of your time in your schedule and you say, what's stuff I can do where there's no profit motive whatsoever? It's the right thing to do. It will be so good for your soul. It will be so good for the world. And people will remember it forever if you could show up in their life in a positive way. Well, one thing that came out of that, though, is I accidentally started another company. And this will happen, which is why I was talking, my one friend recently about, he just had an ex and, it was an awesome deal for him. But he's like, I don't have to work ever again in my life. What do I do? I'm like, go just do what I do, man. It's fun to serve. And then what you'll find is when you're in the process of just out there doing your thing, opportunities will come around. But see, here's the thing. It's like, if you're in a car and the car's not moving, it's kind of hard to change direction. Right. Or adjust. I mean, you can move the steering wheel, but you're not going anywhere. Right. Yeah. So you want the car moving. And then, if you can turn to the left or turn to the right, you have much more play and control of that vehicle when it's in movement. So find stuff to stay active with. Right. And then that will just lead to opportunities. And sure enough, that ultimately led to I was teaching people, because locally in Orlando and Central Florida, I've been on TV over 800 times. So people are like, hey, here comes that savings angel guy, and so I would help them out with media. Here's how to get media, and maybe I'd help make some connections or whatever. But mainly it was about helping them with their media brand, right? So that they could, do maybe the kind of volume that we did with Savings Angel without having to spend a ton of money on ads, because advertising, the founder of Geek Squad once said, advertising is the tax you pay for being unremarkable. Doesn't mean you shouldn't advertise. It's just, if you've not done enough to gain the attention of audiences organically, you're going to have to pay for it. So, always. Which is fine. But I'm of the opinion that if I've not achieved that level where all of my business is inbound, I believe that I ought to keep on working a little bit harder so I can get to that point.
So you laid down a ton of stuff there, and I want to go back and sort of make my way through a little bit of it, if you don't mind, Josh. When you went into the Navy, you talked about that. I'd like to understand what got you from being, your child or your kid to making the decision to go into the Navy. What was going on?
Yeah, it's kind of like Richard Gere in Officer and Gentleman. I got nowhere else to go. It's like, I didn't. I was, why? My parents, God bless them, I worked so hard, but they couldn't afford to send me to college. I was looking at doing that myself, and I'm like, where's that money going to come from? Thankfully, a recruiter came into our journalism class in high school, and they talked about, hey, and you could get great on the job training. You can work in a great environment. Especially he brought a former Plainwell High School student with him who was now active in the military, and he was a photographer. And he's all like, "Oh, it's so great, man! I'm hanging out of helicopters and taking photos of all this." I'm like, "Man, that sounds fun!" So a buddy of mine went to the recruiting office and tell us what you got, and my buddy didn't qualify, but I did. It ended up being a really good play for me. It wasn't easy. It's a challenging lifestyle, no matter what the work, the role is. But for me, I really learned a lot of, in addition to getting comfortable in a media environment, because I did mostly video news for 3 years. And then my last year, I was a DJ. That was my job in the military. So it was a cool job. Again, still, all that said, kind of a grueling work environment, but it was good because it toughened me up. And one thing that, if you ever get business owners on the show, and you ask them about how did your military experience flavor your personality as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, I think you'll hear this quite commonly. And that is that you learn grit, right? You learn tenacity, because in the military, there is no room. You can't go to your chief or, your officer or whatever and say, well, I tried it, but it was pretty hard, so I stopped. Like that concept.
That doesn't go over well. Huh? It's not well received.
Anytime I use that example with someone in the military, they always start laughing, because it's like, yeah, no, that's like, there's no room for that. You do the mission. You fix the problem. You complete the mission. There is no option for quitting. Right. You just do it. And so that's helpful, because, you go back to books like Atomic Habits, for example. What is the difference between an amateur and a professional or a champion? And it's not innate skill. It's not amazing personality traits. It's not, it's just, you just kept on showing up. It's like I just now starting a weightlifting, it's like a 6-month program, right? Where it's a competition. And, with that right of leverage, that amount of leverage on myself is just perfect. Right. And so I actually have in my bedroom closet, I made a paper chain. Remember, like, days to Christmas or days to your birthday,
sure.
Stuff, so you make a paper chain. I actually literally made a paper chain, 104 links, because all I have to do is 104 workouts. That's it. And so every day that I do a workout, I just rip off one of those paper chains. And that's really it. By the way, Atomic Habits, that's probably one of the 2 best books that I read last year. Fantastic, by James Clear.
Yeah, James Clear. Yeah, I've read that book as well. And it's a good point you make about the book and about life in general. The difference between someone who makes it big and someone who doesn't is usually much smaller than you think it is. It's the grit or the grind or the showing up. It's showing up with intention. It's just doing the things that 95% of the people won't do continuously. Like 5% of the people do it, maybe less than that. And
because it gets boring. It gets boring. Here I am, it's like, you and I have each done a lot of podcasts, right? And people ask, why do I do that? And I say, around episode 200, 300 something, you'll start to see. But until then, it's like you're doing all this work. You're like, is this really paying off? Like, is it worth it? And then, you get at some point, right? You'll start to see, holy cow. For me, I'll tell you the number one reason I do it. Number one, serve an audience. Number two, but the business justification for doing what I do. So I serve the audience for free, right? There's no ads. I don't do ads. I don't do any of that stuff. The number one thing that I get like personal value out of it is the ultimate networking tool. I get to spend every day with amazing business leaders, and just that proximity together has led to so many opportunities. And, as you mentioned in the intro, the work that UpMyInfluence does today, completely different than what we were doing at the beginning. In the beginning, we were just offering low-cost public relations services. And I would say we were doing it just okay. But today, what do I do better than anyone else on the planet? I fill the sales schedules of high authority coaches, consultants, B2B service providers, and agency owners. And I do it leveraging generosity and platform. And again, I'm probably one of the top 10 people on the planet. I don't even know who the other 9 would be at doing that very niche-y, nerdy, specific thing. If you want me to help you with your social media and other stuff, don't come to me. I'm not very good at that. Matter of fact, I'm probably average or below average at 99% of things on the planet. But man, that one thing that I obsess on, I have figured out so many things that the only way you can figure those things out is you have to do it 1,000 or so times. Then you start to get good at it.
Yeah, you bring it. So it's interesting because I'm You said you were at 2,000 plus podcasts. I'm at like 250 or so, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, with all my episodes, maybe a little more. But there have been several times along the way where I've thought, just what you were saying, I thought, yeah, this isn't really going where I want it to go. It's not amplifying me. I don't feel like I'm getting the payback on the value that I'm bringing. Right. But then I say to myself, well, like before you today, before we got on this Zoom, I recorded a podcast with Peter Fagan. Peter Fagan is the president of the Milwaukee Bucks, the world champion NBA Milwaukee Bucks, right?
What a cool opportunity.
Right. And I say to myself, well, if I didn't have a podcast, would I have had would Peter Fagan have ever even, maybe he would have given me the time of day if I happened to meet him in a place where it made sense, but what's the likelihood of that?
Right.
Right. So, and it's those kinds of wins, like hitting a good golf shot after you've hit a lot of bad ones, that keeps you going and ultimately will pay off. I do agree with you on that. I want to dig into three things. This Navy thing, this health thing, and then what you do for coaches and consultants. The Navy thing. So how did you spent most of your time as a journalist there, but when you went in, is that what you wanted to be? Did you know that? And was there an easy path to get there? There was an easy path to get there.
I know I was very intentional about, I wasn't going to go in to be a corpsman or an infantry person or whatever. I knew that I had some skills coming in, right? I had really worked hard in high school to focus on, speech and debate and it's interesting, right? Because again, when you look at, like Malcolm Gladwell's 3,000 hours, when you look at Atomic Habits, right? It's, what is it that you should be doing? And I love that. I think it's in Atomic Habits. What should you be doing for a living? And, a lot of times people will say, well, do what you love, right? Yeah. And I don't know that's great advice. And he says, it's close. But here's the thing, right? Do what, for whatever reason, you don't get bored of. Other people would look at that and go, there's no way I could do that. Record, 2,000 podcast episodes. How on earth could you do that? I don't know. I like it. In the sense that I work really hard at it and I work at the craft and I show up in service, right? And there's and I've also figured out, all right, because you always have to have a business plan around everything that you do. And it's like, what is the business plan? Hoping and wishing is not really a great business plan. So maybe we want to be a little bit more methodical about that. So for me, I say, listen, if I get value from the audience, I'm going to count that as a bonus, right? How can I get value from this system? So I very deliberately use my podcast to build relationships with the kind of people that I want to spend time with. And then from there, I'm very deliberate on, what may be a possibility. I don't sell at them, of course. But what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to listen to what they're working on. I ask very deliberate questions in my podcast. I'm listening very closely. What are they working on? Where are their pain points? And maybe I can help them with that. Maybe not. But here's the thing. Your net work equals your net worth. Did I say that right? I think I did.
Because your net worth equals your net worth.
Yes, your network equals your net worth, right? Yeah. That's it. Yes. So now, if he says, listen, my number one problem that's plaguing me right now is, I'm just not getting any engagement on social media. For whatever reason, that's what, whatever, right? Or, hey, I'm making really good money, but I just have no time freedom. Okay, well, I'm not really the expert for that. Like, I can generally tell you, we could kind of talk business owner to business owner, and maybe I can share some things that worked with me. But I'll tell you what, I've been doing this a long time and I've talked with a lot of people. So I know somebody So I don't think it doesn't matter what you come to me in terms of problems in business. I can go through my CRM and I guarantee I've got somebody who can solve that problem. Now, here's the thing. I likely would say, would you mind if I made an introduction? I'll just, full disclosure, I say, I have a business relationship with them. So if ultimately you decide that you end up wanting to work with them or whatever, they would probably, give me some sort of a kickback or referral fee. Would you be offended if that were the case? Nobody says it. Everyone's like, no, of course, I would hope that you would. Right. And so, because I'm happy to make the introduction, just out of because I like you or whatever. But this is actually now what I do. And so it's not going to cost you anything. I mean, certainly, but that, there is so much power to being the guy or gal who knows a guy or gal, right? Who knows people. Yeah. And there became a point in our business where the value of my network exceeded the value of the PR and media consulting services that we were offering. I'm like, okay, look, I could either have my team do this work for you and I get 20% profit margin off of that work, and that's my commission for that. Or I could refer you to somebody else and I don't have to do anything and I still get the same 20%. I tell you what, I'm just going to have someone else do the work if you don't mind, because then I don't have to stress about it. I just have to, keep talking with new awesome people and keep building up my network, so it's a good gig. It's a good gig. It takes a while to get here, but it's a really fun gig. And I'm very humbled today at, the Josh Elledge from 2-3 years ago, who really just started obsessively working on this. Where you plant your seeds is not necessarily where you reap your harvest, right? But there's so much value into caring about people and seeing how you can help other people. And if when you wake up in the morning, your first thought is, I'm grateful for the skills and talents that I have. And I'm grateful, for the platform or whatever, the thing that I've built up. And now I'm so grateful for the lives I get to touch today. I'm so grateful for the impact I get to make in someone's life today, right? That is such a different mantra than, who am I going to make some money from today? If you wake up with that first mantra, people will feel it and people will naturally want to work with you. And I can feel it, and I know you can feel it too, especially if you've done interviewing for a while, you can tell exactly where someone's heart is. Yeah. And here's the thing is we all have our antennae tuned to someone's intentions much better than ever before. And so you broadcast as a business owner, you are always broadcasting your intentions. And so if you think that you can have a lack of alignment between what you say and what you want, you're going to constantly be frustrated over and over and over again. And you're going to wonder what's going on. And it's because we as consumers know exactly what it is that you want before you even open your mouth.
We recognize the conflicting messages, right?
Really good book messages on this. Is Marketing Rebellion by Mark Schaefer. And he talks about what Fortune 500 companies know. You look at advertising today, way different than what it was 20 years ago. It's because Fortune 500 companies know exactly where consumers' brains are. Consumers don't want to be sold to. Think about this, right? Is here we are as a population, and we've been experimented upon like never before. We're inundated with advertising messages. If you spend any time on social media, you are the subject of intense experimentation. So what happens? I forget what this is called in science or whatever, but eventually it's like if you run your test subjects kind of wear out, right? And eventually you need new subjects to get better, fresher data or whatever. So, but here you have a population that's been experimented upon, bombarded with people sliding into their emails, sending them spam, sliding into their DMs, low-key selling at them constantly, bombarding you with ads constantly, what do you think is going to happen to audiences? What do you think is going to happen to populations when you do that? You're going to create a hyper-resistant population that no longer wants to be sold to by your dumb marketing. Marketers have ruined everything. So your only option today is to stop with the false pretense, stop with the nonsense advertising, and just be genuine and authentic with people and serve in a way where you have their needs and their desires at the forefront rather than your own. Anything else today does not work. Or if it does, it works temporarily and it's awfully expensive. And you run into the same situation. I've got clients that are CFOs for a lot of, I'm gonna be careful how I identify who these people are. They love instant automatic sales automation funnels. We'll just say that. And they love to be recognized for achieving a certain magical level. I know this. I've worked with CFOs who serve a lot of those clients. They're broke as hell. And not all of them, but a lot of them, because the margins end up being so thin because of the model, right? And so I'm not saying this for everybody. So back off if you're like saying I'm not making a blanket statement about everybody who does that kind of business. I'm just telling you, it's harder today than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago, even.
Okay, so let's move to health. This chain thing that you talked about, and I know that at some point in your life you sort of changed your habits, speaking of atomic habits, and you lost a lot of weight, and you transformed yourself into, I think, what you describe as a fitness geek or running geek or whatever you are. So tell me about your transformation, and tell me about the challenge that you're undertaking right now. What is it specifically? Yeah.
So you're right. I was a heavy dude. And then it was, I want to say about 12, 13 years ago that I just very consciously, I just meticulously tracked everything that I was eating. I will say that first go around, I was really just racking up calorie deficits day to day, like big calorie deficits. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. So how I believe in, if someone says, hey, I want to get in better shape, I want to lose a little weight. I honestly believe now, because I've lost weight starving myself. It got me down, but then I immediately rebounded a good, 10, 15, 20 pounds, with the exception of, I got to my goal weight, and then it was really interesting. While I was doing that, I was actually watching back in the day, season 7 of The Biggest Loser, which again, not recommended. And again, I can color in why I'm saying not recommended. But in watching that, they said, okay. And they had like the top 3 or 4 people in the contest or whatever, dumb weight loss thing there. But they said, you're going to run a marathon. And I was like, what? People like me can't run marathons. And I was just incredulous and then I watched them in the show, and all 4 of them finished a marathon. Now they ended up walking a good chunk of it or whatever, totally fine. Still 26 miles? That's absurd, right? And so then I got a book, I can't remember, I forget who it was, but he wrote a book that he's like the beginner's guide to running a marathon, like, kind of a couch to marathon type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
And look, it's, unless you have some serious injuries or something like that, I kind of believe that almost anyone could run a marathon if they wanted to. Now, it's not that that's not going to come with some consequences, because, my experience, I'm still, I would say I'm not a rail thin kind of guy. Right? I'm very much an endomorph. I pack on muscle pretty well. I've got those genes, like world's strongest man kind of people. That's my ancestry. Okay. So the hardy Finnish, kind of stocky kind of body shape. But so ran a marathon. So I trained and ran first Disney marathon. And as I crossed the finish line, it was probably short to the birth of my own children. absolutely the most emotional experience of my entire life. And I bawled uncontrollably after crossing the finish line, not because of the 26 miles I just ran, but it was the culmination of all of the training that had to go into that. And before that, the fact that I took a stand for my life and my health and my well-being, and I lost all that weight. And that's the finish line that I crossed in that moment.
What got you to start?
Because I saw other people do it. And it was modeling knowledge, right? I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. I was never an athlete in high school. I was kind of a cool music nerdy, kind of like I was, kind of a little bit punk, a little bit poser, a little bit new wave, it's a cool guy, I guess, a little nerdy, little over gregarious. But yeah, I never got to be an athlete. And when I started running, I started listening to a lot of books and reading a lot of books on this. And, and it was finally someone in an audiobook just said, congratulations. If you're training for a marathon or a half marathon or even a 5K, listen to me. You are an athlete now. And I don't know, there was just something about that. I was like, wow, I'm an athlete. And so what do athletes do? Well, athletes keep showing up and they keep doing good stuff. Right. And so, that's all it took for me. And so, right now I was sharing with you before we started recording is, and look, and everybody has like their seasons, right? So I just finished a very intense work season. Right. And I knew, look, I'm going to take some of these physical things. I'm going to have to set them a little bit because there's seasons of life. Right. And anybody that says, oh, you can live every day in perfect harmony and balance. Get out of here, man. There's going to be crises that are going to happen. There's going to be something there's always stuff that's going to take place. Right. And so you're always going to be a little bit out of balance. But I knew that. So I said, listen, I'm really going to have to really knuckle down for this 4 months. Also, I had a major injury. I injured my back, L4, L5, and it sucks when that happens, right? So then I was on a year and a half of healing from my back and not being able to lift weights, with some exception. So at plantar fasciitis, I've had that really bad for 3 years. I don't know why it kicked in. I rolled my ankle a couple of times and then all of a sudden started getting plantar fasciitis. So I was like, what else am I going to do? So I stopped with the longer distance running, just kind of stuck with the shorter distance and riding my bike. But that's part of this, can you be adaptable? Can you keep on moving, rather than, putting yourself on the sidelines completely. So, now I'm excited because I used a program called Healthy Wage. So I'm actually betting $200 a month that I will lose 25 pounds. Why did I do that? Because they ain't getting my $200 a month. That's not a lot of money. 6 times 2 is $1,200. Still, $1,200 is enough for me to go, oh no, hell no, you are not keeping that money. So I put that money down as a bet against, a bet for my success. And then plus I win a little bit of extra money if I do it and stuff. So,
okay. And that's, so that's the ultimate goal of this particular challenge is to lose 25 pounds. Is there some other part?
That's one of the goals, right? Mainly I want the physique that turns heads. Mainly my wife.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I should say only my wife, dear. The others are just kind of like, oh, I feel good about myself.
So if you get that and you don't get the 25 pounds, you'd be okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would. That's it's not, I don't need the external reaction. I want to be able to, let's say, for example, there were a picture of me shirtless on social media. I wouldn't be like, oh God, oh no. Yeah. Okay. How do I get that off? Like, I would be like, yeah. It would be cool. It would be I would feel good. I would feel as though my exterior was a match to my interior, because I've done a lot of internal work. And do we really want to show up to the finish line in life, with a body that maybe doesn't support, or unfortunate. And listen, a lot of this stuff may sound superficial. and I get that, right? But for me, like I want very badly to put the amount of effort into my physical body so that I can have longevity and energy and, I can run and not tire and that sort of thing. Like, that's cool. Like I want a body, especially now. And, I recently just turned 50 as well. So like, look, I have to do this, right? Because, at that age, your life choices have lasting implications if, as we start getting in our 40s and 50s and certainly our 60s, if you don't have muscle mass, that muscle mass is a gift going into those decades. If you got it,
you're not building more of it on your own. It's not just happening. You have to
right. Yeah. So I listen, I want to be here for a long time for my wife, for my kids, for the people that I serve. And I believe that being in great physical health is instrumental to that.
Well, the reason I wanted to explore that a little bit further, and thanks for sharing that, was
I don't get to talk about this very often. Thank you.
Yeah, my own journey was, 22 years building my first company, and I like staying in shape during that time. I would go to the gym and I would do things, but it didn't come first. And as a result, without really paying attention to it, thinking, pretty much the same. I put on about 30 pounds over that time. And I a few years ago decided that's not who I wanted to be. And I got rid of that. But I wondered, in your case, was it, business and life can grind away at your ambition to do the things that you need to do to keep yourself sort of number one sometimes. Was that kind of what led to you? Did you have a similar journey that led to you putting on the weight before you had this epiphany to change?
Yes. I put on most of that weight when I was really stressed out and struggling business wise.
Okay.
I was at the tail end of kind of a contractor type relationship that I was just, it was very stressful. And then, oh my gosh, then I lost a home to, a short sale. We had to short sale a home. Finances were just so stressful. So, listen, I have so much empathy for our friend right now who's listening to our conversation, and you're going through a stage in life where you're dealing with a lot of stuff. I have been there. I empathize with you. I want you to know that I love you. And I promise you that, just like, and Jim Rohn, get this little book. It's called Seasons of Life by Jim Rohn. And that book gave me hope. But I will tell you that because I was so stressed about, I got to get my family's finances figured out. It was too much pressure for me. Well, I should go to the gym right now. I should be lifting weights. I should be out running. I didn't do any of those things because my brain was elsewhere. My brain was, frantically figuring out, how could I pay the bills? And in fact, when I launched Savings Angel, I didn't even have enough money to pay my heating bill. It was my first radio segment that I ever did that gave me the money to pay the heating bill that was due that week. Otherwise, they were going to shut off my utilities. And this was March in Michigan, which, well, you're in Wisconsin, that's still winter.
For sure.
You don't want your heat turned off that early in the year. So I remember, working, I was working 12, 16 hour days easily. To try to get it figured out. I was building my own website and there was really no business podcasts at the time. I mean, so I was listening to like audio cassettes and CDs and, somehow I would get MP3 versions of some things, and I'd be, constantly listening to that. The Secret had come out and, so I was like really into that. But eventually the business launched first year was still pretty dicey. It was all right. At least I could pay my bills. But then the second year, things started taking off. And I think that was about the time frame that we moved down. Yeah. Second or third year, moved down to Florida. And interestingly enough, too, we moved for whatever reason. It seemed like my environment was a little bit different too. It seemed like the people that my wife and I were associated, there were a lot more fit people in where we moved. And that was part of it too. It's like, oh, well, new beginnings. And when in Rome, there was a lot of our friends were like into little triathlon sprints. And so they were just constantly talking about fitness. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll, better, I don't want to be this oddball. So there was a little bit of social pressure for me to conform essentially as well. But I think primarily it was on the shelf and I knew that it was on the shelf. And I think it was when I stood on a scale and I looked at 230 pounds, I was like, what? That's not me. What?
Right.
How can that be? How did I get to 230? Right. And then, moved down here. And it was really, I think it was pretty shortly after we moved down here that I got going. In fact, I had a friend from Michigan come down and visit, and he comes through the front door and they're like, who are you? You lost some weight, man. And it was like, that's a cool reaction.
That had to feel good. That had to feel good. Have you? Yeah. So that's interesting what you said there, because it's another, you use the word Rome, but I'll say it's another Ronism, right? The people you're around impact who you are, right?
Yeah.
And you're around people who are in shape. You go, wait.
Yeah. Guess that's what we do.
That's what we do, right? That's what you do.
But that same thing, it's like, how do you talk about your wife? Well, how do your friends talk about their wives? Chances are you're going to talk about your wife in the way that they talk about their wives. And if you're around someone that you don't think that they're very respectful or whatever, you're probably going to disassociate, because there's it's like, man, I'm zigging and you're zagging. And I don't know, like you will just naturally kind of start to lose touch with one another. I see that all the time.
So let's turn back to Up-My-Influence. So I'm a business coach, or I'm a consultant, or I'm someone who could be one of those things, right? And I want to get my business, jump started or accelerated. What's it like to partner with you, work with you, and what happens? How's it?
Right. Yeah. So there's definitely, we know who we work well with. And when you do something, a lot of times you start to figure out who you're a really good fit for and who you're not a good fit for. And you learn not to take the business from, people you're like, well, we could do it, but we're not sure if it would be successful or not. Don't take that business. It's tempting, especially when you want the money. Always trust your gut on that. If I could just put a plug in there. I don't know why I brought that up, but here's the deal. All right. I know who I work well with. And that is, if you are already doing about 6 figures in business, you generally have some pretty good authority. People will pay you well for your time because you are known for achieving outcomes. But the main problem you have is you have capacity, right? You're not at full capacity business-wise. If that's where the gap is, then I fix that gap. I can get you to full capacity and keep you at full capacity for the rest of your life. How I do that is we really have to take a page from Bob Burg, the Go-Giver. If you don't get what Bob talks about in that book, also, that disqualifies you from working with me. If you want automated riches and you don't want it, all you care about is just automating money and you don't care about the people that you work with, that is a hard disqualification. I don't work with sharks. I only work with people that believe in growing their business through meaningful, authentic relationships. Okay. All that said, here's what we do. Right. And so you gotta, it comes down to 3 elements. And I firmly, if you are in big ticket or big-ish ticket, business, especially again, consultants, coaches, speakers, B2B service providers, agency owners, it's the greatest way of growing your business. You will love starting work every single day, and you'll never have to, well, I don't want to say you'll never stress about money. There's some other factors in there, but in terms of solving for the problem, let me start with this. Okay. Sorry, I'm bebopping around a little bit. Revenue comes from closed sales, period. You with? Let me know where I lose you. To our friend,
you haven't lost me yet. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good. So we're good there. Okay, where do closed sales come from? Closed sales come from sales conversations. Not everyone is going to buy. In fact, I would argue a majority of people that you have sales conversations with are not going to buy your thing. Get over yourself. It's not about you. It's about them, right? If they feel like you can solve their problem, they will buy. If they don't have your problem, they are not going to buy. If they don't have a problem that you can solve, they're not going to buy. If they do have a problem and they do have the problem that you fix and they feel like you can solve their problem, they will buy unless they just don't have the money or something like that. That's, other than that, they're going to buy. They will buy. So let's say that out of 100 people, let's say you want 20 sales, right? So how do you get to 20 sales? Well, if your conversion rate, and again, it has more to do with the population than it does you. Now, you do need to have focused on your authority, right? So you need some industry authority. The more industry authority you have, the easier it's going to be, and your conversion rate is going to go up. If you have low authority, you're probably only going to have maybe a 10% conversion rate. If you have high authority, you may have 25, 30% conversion rate. Yeah.
And how do you define and measure authority, just so everyone knows what you're talking about?
Okay. So take where you are right now. Think of where you are in your industry, what you do, how you're known for it. If someone were to do a Google search on you, what opinion might they come up with in about 30 to 60 seconds? Okay. That should give you some indication of where you are, right? Take a look at your branding on a scale from 1 to 10. If your branding looks like a 3, it's going to be really hard for you to work with. It's going to be really difficult for you to get business with 6s, 7s, and 8s. Because they're going to look at where you are right now. It's not your fault. It's just the way that we do business, right? And is it superficial? Yes, but it's the way we do business. So if you're a 3, you'll have no problem doing business with 3s and 4s, right? However, the 5, 6s, and 7s might be a little bit elusive for you. So we can overcome that a little bit. But what I want you to do, authority is not something you're going to grow overnight. It's going to be something that you're going to need to work on it a couple hours a week, every single week for the rest of your life. Because then all of a sudden one day you'll wake up and you're just going to feel lucky. Like it's going to be like Harry Potter when he drinks that lucky juice. I forget what polyjuice, or I forget what it is, but it is so weird I love that scene in that movie because he just says the perfect thing that gets him the outcome that he wants. And he has no control over it because the luck is just directing everything. So when people say, they've spent some time checking you out because everyone's going to check you out. Right. And so I don't do business with anybody until I check them out. Right. And it's simple. It could be just simple Google search, spending time on your site, looking at your social media, and I'm going to start to build a picture about you. And is it a fair picture? Probably not, but it's the way that we all do business. So take your authority, what you perceive your authority to be, and imagine I'm going to wave my magic wand, and I've just bestowed upon you 10 times the industry authority that you had previously. Okay. What is your life now like? Imagine what your inbound sales opportunities are going to be different. Again, if you have 10 times the authority, imagine your speaking invitations, your joint venture opportunities. Imagine what your traffic is like, your social media is like. Imagine how people treat you. Again, if you have 10 times the authority. Mm-hmm. So now you can get authority a lot of different ways. There's authority through association, right? I went to Harvard and got a PhD. Oh, well, I know what Harvard is, and I respect Harvard. And if they give you a PhD, then because I respect the authority of Harvard, I therefore respect the authority that you have, right? I have 130,000 followers. I don't have a PhD. I have 130,000 followers on social media, right? And it looks, somewhat legit, right? And by the way, I do have 130,000 followers on social media. And so someone could look at that and go, oh, well, if 130,000 people have decided to at least engage at some level with this person, that probably means something. So therefore, we have authority through social proof, right? I have testimonials. Oh, okay. Well, this person is the, head of marketing at blah, blah, blah. I recognize that this person looks legit. Therefore, we transpose its authority through, again, more kind of association and authority through testimonials and success and that sort. By the way, I teach on a lot of this stuff at my website. If you're really into this, I've got a free video series where I really dive deep into a lot of these elements. Authority is a big deal, right? And so, again, don't stress out if you're like a 2 right now in business, because guess what? Guess where everybody starts? 0.
Yeah, right.
And then we just keep showing up. We keep on doing the deal. Do things like, but you could do simple things like, get new headshots for your social media profiles. Small, seemingly unimportant, but it really actually makes a difference because people will look at your headshot and they'll make judgments about you. Is it fair? Nope. Is it superficial? Yep. People do it? Yep. And so that is one way to just earn a few more seconds of attention, right? Your LinkedIn profile. That's one thing I can tell you as a podcast host, people will send me all these one sheets and all that. I'd never look at them. I just pull up their LinkedIn profile because LinkedIn generally tells me about everything I need to know and certainly give me enough to talk about. But why not take an afternoon and max out your LinkedIn profile? It can only help you. And that is an authority indicator. A lot of people will do a Google search on you. And if you have a well-optimized LinkedIn profile, usually it's going to come up on page 1 of the Google search results. If you Google my name, Josh Elledge, I haven't done this for for a little while. I think my LinkedIn profile is probably going to come up in page 1. Sorry, I use Brave and DuckDuckGo. So I'm going to have to go back over to Google. So
that's
see what happens when I Google myself.
You can use Google on Brave.
Yeah, that's right. But my default search engine is DuckDuckGo. Okay, here we go. Yep. Number 1 search result is my LinkedIn profile. Number 2 is my media page on my own website. Number 3 is my personal Instagram profile. Then we go to my personal Facebook. Yeah. Well, let me tell you, if you want to get a really good picture of who Josh Elledge is, just Google me and then check out what Google tells you. Google's they've collected some good stuff here.
Google is telling you that Josh has authority.
What's that?
I said Google is telling us that Josh has authority.
Has a what?
Authority.
Yeah. So your Google search results, big time indicator of where you are. So again, we want to work on that. Oh man, where were we before we were talking about authority? Oh, we were talking about where does money come from? Because I want to help you. To our friend listening right here, I want to help you get a ton of money. All right. So many people overcomplicate this. Okay. Revenue comes from closed sales. Closed sales come from sales conversations. Where do sales conversations come from? Okay. You just need to build relationships with more people, more of your ideal customers, period. And end of story. That's it. That's where money comes from. And so now if let's say the 20 sales, and let's say you charge $10,000, the average lifetime value is $10,000. That's $200,000 for the year. Okay. If I can help you make 20 sales. So again, 20 times 10,000 is $200,000. $200,000, that's good living. That's a pretty good living in the United States. So I would say it's a damn good living. And so given my background and my parents and stuff. Okay. So so all we have to do then is we have to have 100 meaningful conversations. How do we do that? Well, great question. So what is it? How can we get the attention of 100 of our dream customers, if you think the answer is sliding into their DM and low-key selling them, Mike, do you have a buzzer sound effect?
No,
but
I have one downstairs that says that's bullshit. But, I should have had that ready.
All right. Okay. That doesn't. Okay. So that's not going to work. What else can we do? You could spam people, right? That's a possibility. And buzz. And then again, insert buzzer sound effect, right? Well, let's see what else. Oh, LinkedIn. You could slide into DMs. It's going to take a lot of annoying the crap out of people to get 100 people to say, sure, I would love to have a conversation with you about your IT services, right? Meanwhile, it's like people are laughing right now as I'm talking and illustrating this because we all get spammed. We all get sold to. How do you feel when people treat you like that? Do you want to engage with them? I don't.
No, you want to run away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing. And I learned this about pitching media, right? Is that if it's all about you, you're already setting yourself up to fail, right? And the more exclusive of a club that you are trying to reach into, the more layers of protection they have learned to build for themselves. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
You're going to get a team of people. Like if you reach out to me with a sales kind of message, I probably will never see it because my team has been trained to help me keep my focus. I just don't have time to go down rabbit holes. I'm sure as hell not going to watch your webinar if you just, hey, how'd you like to join our blah, 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 blah. If I don't even know who you are and you hit me up with some webinar or join your Facebook group or whatever, it's a hard no. And it's not that I disrespect you. I just don't have the bandwidth. Even the free time that I do have, that's not where I want to spend it because I don't need to, right? My free time I spend with my family, with my friends, with doing the things that I really, really enjoy. My bills are paid. Like I'm good. Like I'm not in desperation. Like I'm fine. If I need something, I know how to find it generally. So that's not really a good fit. And then also, in terms of, bandwidth, I'm just trying, and if I want to, let's say I want to join a thing because I want to perform service, I have a big enough network. Trust me when I say I have an infinite number of service opportunities and I love it. I don't need someone cold DMing me for, again, there's really nothing you can interest me with if you're coming in cold at me. If I don't know who you are. And
Sure.
Again, I'm sharing that as a representation to pretty much everybody is like that. I'm kind of trying to throw a little bit of a bucket of cold water on things that you may have tried in the past. And I want you to know it's not your fault. This is just some guru told you to do this because gurus make a lot of money selling bad advice. Why? I don't want to get too conspiratorial here, but I know this very, very well. I've actually studied cult behavior and how cults work. Cults will intentionally give adherents really bad advice on go out in the world with a bullhorn and try to convince people and convert people, go bang on a bunch of doors, go do this, go do that, and go, just all this stuff, right? It doesn't work. It doesn't, the numbers are horrible. It's bad marketing advice. So why would a cult do that? Right. And I should say also legitimate churches do this as well. And other legitimate organizations do this as well. Why do they do that? It's not for the conversions. It's for the person that they're sending out. It's an intentional. I've seen this done, I should say, quite artfully and masterfully at a couple of guru events that I've attended. They intentionally give you really bad advice, have you try it, have you fail, and then you come back to the community where you're love bombed and you're like, oh, see, that's okay. The outside world doesn't understand you. All you need is X. all you need is to buy my new product.
Course.
All you need to do is join our new, more exclusive program, and then you'll learn the secrets. So if you went out and you were successful, you wouldn't need anything more. Does that make sense? So again, there's I've looked at the data and talked with people on the inside of Verywell, an organization that sends out a lot of folks knocking on doors and stuff. And it is absolutely, bottom line, it is for the person or people that they're sending out to knock on the doors, because it actually it keeps them in a lot longer. And makes them a much stronger member of that organization. The conversion results are horrible, terrible. It's a horrible use of money and resources, terrible use of manpower, but they do it anyway because it's an investment in the future for that person.
So for someone that does fit you, right? And is willing to work to grow their authority and their business, how do they get? Great
question, because I didn't complete that loop.
Yeah.
That's the best question you could ask her. Okay. So read Bob Burg, The Go-Giver, or Go-Givers Sell More. And you have to ask yourself then, what can I truly give away? So how do you bridge a gap? If you're a 3 and you want to market to 5s and 6s, it's going to be very difficult. How do you bridge that gap? The answer is number 2. Number 1 is authority. Like I mentioned, there's three things you absolutely must do to succeed in business today. Number 1, you've got to work on your authority, and it's going to take some time. Number 2 is generosity. Generosity will bridge that gap. I remember meeting with a very, very influential personal finance person at an event. And I said, hey, I went up to him. I said, man, loved your presentation. And I was just looking you up on LinkedIn. And look, I love your work. You don't realize this, but your work has already impacted me in such positive ways. I would love to be of service. Would you mind if you connected me with your team or whatever? I would be honored to do a LinkedIn profile. I do that professionally. I would be honored to do that pro bono. You don't have to pay me. I would just be my thrill to do that. I was just going through your LinkedIn and I found at least 7, 8 things that I would love to have my team and I work on for you at no cost. It would just be my honor to do so. He said, yeah, totally. Let me get you connected with so-and-so. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Again, this is not a fake. Come on. Because if it was, he would sense it. I was genuine, right? Do I want something in return? Well, that might happen, but I have to be okay. You have to be okay with the result that it might not happen, right? Because if you're only doing it because you want a do-si-do, that's not giving. That's not generosity. That's like, I'm going to give you $10 and you're going to give me a meal or something like that. That's just transactional. That's not giving. You have to be willing to give with no expectation of return. But here's the thing. And here's what happens. I would say 8, 9 times out of 10, they will reciprocate, but you have to give willingly with the expectation of reciprocity. Yeah. So if you can do that and you can get your mind there, the world will be opened up to you in a way that will shock you. But you have to be the first one to give. This is how I got 2,500 media appearances. I always worked with the producers in a way where it was all about them. I had no calls to action, no sales, never promoted my thing on, these 3-minute TV segments. Was always about being there to make the producer look good, the talent look good, the station look amazing, the audience. I want to give them value. And that's the attitude you kind of have to have. And if you can't get to that point, you might consider a different line of work because it's going to be really hard to grow your business any other way. You got to lead with generosity.
And let's take us out with number 3, Josh. What's number 3 then? So you got authority, generosity.
Number 3 is platform. And what I mean by platform today in 2022 is the easiest way for you to be insanely generous. What's platform? Let me give you some examples. podcasts, live streaming on social media, creating content together, a blog post, a social media post. It's so easy to create content celebrating somebody else. Go back and read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends, Influence People. Mm-hmm. That's what you should be doing. But use social media to make other people look amazing. Oh, if you look at my social media, it's very infrequently about me or anything. It's always about other people and celebrating other people. That's very intentional. I use my social media for good. I use my social media to make other people feel amazing, because if I can keep on doing that, eventually, they're going to be like, hey, thanks. What can I do for you? Right. And so I've gotten on some big name podcasts doing the same thing. Okay. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're like, well, Josh, I don't have any audience. Okay. Are you a member of, let's say, a Facebook group where you have permission from the mods and the group to do a live stream? So I did this once. I went to an event, and I know we're kind of running low on time. I'll make this story quick here. I went to an event, not my event, right? It's for my wife. However, I was thinking, I know this is the way I live, right? And so I'm like, who runs this event? Oh, it's this woman over here. And so I was part of a group that she was very interested in getting more people from that group to attend this event. I knew that, right? So I said, would you mind if I did a quick live video to this group where we could talk about what's going on at this event and, why people should get on over here, get to this event, buy their tickets for next year, what takes place. She's like, yeah, are you kidding? Totally. Right. And so I'm doing a quick live stream with her. Right. And I'm just like, hey, I'm on the ground. And I interview her and she's like taking me around. And then we're like going to like vendor booths and we're interviewing them and making them look amazing to this group. And then close it up, say, thank you. Bye. And she's like, thank you so much for doing that. You didn't have to do that. I'm like, yeah, I was just standing here anyway. I figured, I'm in this, I figured, folks in this group would be interested in this. And then she's like, well, who are you? It's like, I was like, well, I'm Josh, but my wife is Jenny. And then I kind of explained the connection of how she might know my wife, Jenny. And she goes, oh, hey, Jen. And then she starts talking with Jenny. Now, is that going to do anything for my wife's professional career? Who knows? Do I care? No, not really. Like, I'm just okay with planting those seeds, because where you plant your seeds is not necessarily where you reap your harvest. But go ahead and plant anyway, because eventually you will reap a harvest that is just so enjoyable in life. If you're the kind of person that has, 2, 3, 4, 500 people who, when they think of, who sells homes in our neighborhood? Oh, I know, it's Josh, right? You're a game, set, match. You are set for life. Get to that point. It might take you a few years, but it's totally worth it. We have been 100% inbound as a company now for 28 months. And I talk with 40 of my dream customers every single month. 100% inbound. They're all 6 and 7 figure business owners. And it is my absolute pleasure. And it is my dream to be able to work within a company like this, do what I do with the kind of people that I get to associate with.
Well, Josh, just thank you so much for sharing all that you've shared and for teaching us how to up our influence. We already know how to get a hold of you and get connected with you. You just Google him and it comes up the first
find me.
five
Thankfully,
things.
There's not too many other Josh Elledges out there. There's a couple. One was on The Bachelorette. That was not me. He's much more good looking.
Okay. Well, congratulations on your challenge, your health challenge.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing authority, generosity, and platform. I learned a lot, and I appreciate the opportunity to get to know you as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate it.